Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session today. As we give folks a moment to join, we do have a chat over to the right if anyone would like to comment and just say, where are you joining us from today? East Coast, West Coast, wherever, just drop it in the chat while we wait for folks. Connecticut, South Jersey, East Coast, New York. All right, a lot of East Coast representation. Love to see it. I myself am also on the East Coast. London, okay. Thank you for joining us all the way from London. Pittsburgh, we got Jersey, California, West Coast. All right, bunch of different coasts, bunch of different places. Love to see it. Thank you all for joining us today. Give it a few more seconds before we get started. Rebecca, thanks for joining us from Minnesota. All right, well, you can continue to drop where you're joining us from in the chat today. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. My name's Reagan Lynch, and I'm going to be moderating today's session. I'm an HR senior analyst here at Capital Group with a specialization in recruitment marketing, which is how I came to be on this event today. So just a few housekeeping items before we get into our wonderful conversation with our panelists. This session will be recorded and sent to all registrants, so even if you have to drop early or if you're viewing this later, thanks for tuning in to catch the full session. We also have a stage chat to the right, which it seems like most of us have found, dropping all of our locations where we're joining from. Also over on the right, there is a Q&A section, so we are going to have some time at the end to answer some live questions, so please use that Q&A feature to submit those questions as we're going along. And I think that's it for housekeeping. So before we get to who is Capital Group, first we want to talk about who is Fairygodboss. So Fairygodboss is the largest online community for women where they go for career connections, jobs, community advice, and information about how companies engage with women and also offer virtual events like this. So thank you to our gracious hosts at Fairygodboss for giving us this opportunity to connect with you all today. And now I'm thrilled to kick off our event hosted by Capital Group, Beyond Buzzwords, how AI is reshaping every business function. So I'm going to pull up a few slides just to talk about who is Capital Group, not Capital One. You might have heard that before, maybe potentially thought that's who we are, but no, we are Capital Group. So we are one of the world's largest independent investment managers. We've been serving investors for over 90 years with over 3 trillion assets under management. And we're grounded in our long-term philosophy and guided by our mission of improving people's lives through successful investing. And you hear all of that and you probably wonder, AI and asset management, what's the connection? The point there is that even in our industry, just like all other industries, AI is changing the conversation and reworking and rethinking the way that we work and get our jobs done. And I have 3 lovely panelists here with me today. We have Leslie MacEachern, who's a Vice President of Human Resources at Capital Group, Andrew Helms, who's a Human Resources Technology Manager, and then Jessica Townsend, who's a Lead Data Product Manager for our investment group. So in the spirit of all things AI and keeping introductions nice and fun, I'm going to pass it to our panelists to introduce themselves with some fun slides featuring the AI action figures that they made of themselves. So I'm going to pass it to Leslie to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Leslie MacEachern. I lead the HR optimization as part of the HR strategy and transformation team. I have about 18 years of overall HR experience spanning across healthcare, finance, and retail. I've been a part of Capital now for about 7 years, and very much it's been a privilege and a journey. What you see in front of you in terms of my action figure is the sincere passion I have to just rethink and relearn as much as I can. I have a very lovely family, 2 little girls that we love to travel with. And I really enjoy being part of a community that we have established here at Capital. So it's a pleasure to meet everyone, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Thank you, Leslie. Next, I'm going to pass it to Andrew.
Thanks, Reagan. Andrew Helms here. I'm a Human Resources Technology Manager for Capital Group, and I've been here almost 10 years, and about half of that I've been on the technology side, specifically leading different product teams ultimately to deliver solutions to the enterprise and to HR. I loved doing this exercise of having AI create our action figures because I'm a daily user of AI in my personal life and at work. And it was actually fun to just give it a really generic prompt and tell it to come up with what are those, icons that you think you would include, or those little bite-sized toys you would include with my action figure. And this is what it came up with. And I think what I'll say is, in totality, in the technology space, in the product management space, you are at the center of like a firestorm and an ecosystem, and you really have to understand everything from how is that technology evolving, where is it going, to what are your customers' problems, how are you going to solve them, to what are those AI regulations and laws out there that are impacting us, and how do we address them and bias test. So there is literally nothing that's occurring in the world that isn't at some point in time a thought in a product manager's head. So that is a little about me.
Thank you, Andrew. And last but not least, I'm going to pass it over to Jessica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Townsend. I am a lead data product manager for our investment group. I have over 15 years experience across manufacturing, healthcare, and asset management, and most of that time at CG. And so at Capital Group for the last 5 years. And all of my career has really been at the intersection of people, process, technology, and data. So now at Capital Group, my current focus is twofold. One, it's about building data products for our investment group to use as part of their research and portfolio construction. So specifically focusing on portfolio risk analytics and external market data. And then in parallel, looking at how can we use AI to accelerate our data creation and by doing so, accelerating the whole research workflow. And so we have a dedicated data team at Capital Group. However, the speed and need for data is far more than what our team can do by ourselves. And so now we're looking at how do we find a way to scale to build these high quality data products with the embedded governance to ensure it's fit for use across Capital. So really excited for today's session.
Thank you to all of our panelists for those great introductions. As you can see, we have a variety of different professional experiences here, but there's one common thread that we will all be talking about today, and that's AI being woven into their day-to-day. So with that, we are going to transition into the questions that we have prepared for you all to pick all of our professionals' brains. So Andrew, as a technology manager, I'd love to start with you. What's one practical example where AI moved from buzzword to a measurable business impact in your function?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, especially in the environment we find ourselves in today, where AI is like that hot new thing out there, right? And everybody's looking for, where can I take advantage of it? And Capital Group was no different. Human resources was no different. And as we've seen the explosion of chatbot usage outside of the company, a lot of us were starting to look at that coming into the environment and saying, you know what, we have a real challenge today with trying to find various pieces of information that are HR related. As a global organization, several different sites, when you think about HR knowledge, it is changing in all of those contexts. It changes for somebody based on their employee type, if they're a manager, if they sit in HR. And so a really complex challenge that for the first time ever, AI offers an opportunity for us to actually solve it. And so that's exactly what we did. We got our hands on some experimental technology over the last year. And we got to go in there and start playing around with it. And what we built was actually solving the need and doing it really well, better than anticipated. And so in the past, where if you had an HR question, you might have had to go to the intranet, you might have had to go to our SaaS provider for core HCM. You might have had to go to an international location, a SharePoint site. Maybe you're just pinging somebody. Now, all of that is encapsulated in this chatbot experience that we've created that connects to all of our HR knowledge seamlessly and works in natural language. So that is something where it was an idea in somebody's head. We went out and started prototyping and playing with it. And by the end of the year, we were able to launch that to the enterprise. So Pretty cool story of concept to delivery, all within a time period of maybe 6 months.
Yeah, no doubt that AI had a hand in playing into how quickly that came to fruition and just the way that it's able to kind of simplify all of that vast, ever-changing knowledge. So I think that's a really great example. Thanks, Andrew. And then Jessica, I would love to hear your thoughts on this next question. And then obviously, Andrew, Leslie, feel free to jump in. But what were you most surprised about AI adoption here at Capital Group or in your business function, either friction points or things that really helped accelerate adoption?
Yeah, I think for me, maybe I'll hit on both the friction point and accelerator. I think it's really interesting to see that it's a really full spectrum in terms of there's people like not using AI at all, and that's both at work and in their personal lives, and then those that are full on, right? And then every combination in between. And so, I mean, I think AI, we sometimes forget like, oh, it's this new shiny object, but it's really traditional change management, right? Like it's a new tool, it's a new thing, and we all have to kind of figure out how it works, right? And so I think it's going to be really important and um, mindful for us to really meet people where they are, right? Because depending on, how comfortable they are or how savvy they feel, you know what I mean? It can be intimidating. And sometimes they may like feel embarrassed, right? Or like I'm behind the curve. So I think we really need to be mindful in terms of meeting where they are, to like really start ingraining, the use of AI in our everyday work. And then I think kind to go on the accelerator part, I think the best scenario I've seen is that, you really need to find your community, your tribe, your people, right? Because like doing this by yourself, it's like going down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, right? You're like, oh my God, I thought I knew something and I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's okay. I mean, I think everybody, AI is changing so fast that like it's okay what you know today is probably not going to be the same tomorrow. So I think if you can find that community or even just that one coworker, right, to talk to and have that safe space to openly say like, this is working, or can you help me set this up, like, or show me, right? So like I think it's finding that like safe space. And then the second part of that would be time. um, you have to give yourself time to figure out how it works for you. Because the way I use AI is different than how Leslie will use it, or even Andrew, right? I mean, even though we may share like, oh hey, we have the same problem, this is how I approached it, ultimately, right, it comes down to trying out to see if it fits for you. So I think it'll be really important in terms of like, really getting that change fast. Is one, find your people, right? Whoever it is, even if it's one person or many, and then really give yourself time to like give yourself that grace to learn. So I think that's it for me.
Those
Jessica,
are
I
all
couldn't
some.
agree with you more because it very much resonated when I think about one of the unique value propositions of capital, it's its people. The talent we have are not only highly tenured, but they're passionate, highly talented individuals that want to grow and continue. I think about the tribe you just mentioned, and Andrew and I have been through the trenches, so to speak, as we embarked on this sort of chatbot journey. And I'm more grateful than ever to have Andrew by my side to say, hey, look, what are you thinking? How do we solve this together? And I just want to do a bit of a shout out to the partnership that we continuously find here at Capital. Oh,
Am I muted? I was muted.
I was just saying, I
there you
think you
go.
had double muted.
That's technology for
um,
you.
AI
yeah,
advancement, but the
um,
unmute mute feature will always remain a challenge.
we're working on an agent for that. So what I was going to add is for anybody who finds themselves in a position where you yourself are needing to go out and drive AI adoption, maybe you're the savant on the team and you're like, I'm using it all the time, it's amazing, but others on the team aren't. A big thing that we're starting to shift into more so recently is really slowing down to go quick later, and at the very beginning going out and understanding who is the audience that you're considering for the AI adoption and what are personas within it that you can start to change how you drive adoption for them, right? Like you wouldn't go to a 5-year-old and you wouldn't go to a 12-year-old and teach them the same thing in the same way. You're going to have a different approach. And people are coming at this with completely different perspectives. Some people are like very far behind the game on a tech savviness perspective in general. And so they have a lot higher to climb to get there. And some are very tech savvy, but AI is just this brand new thing. And so having those personas allows you to go out and very targeted say, here's what we're going to do for this person, here's what we're going to do for this person. And hopefully those audiences and personas have many people within them. And so it's your, tackling a large effort with one really targeted approach. So that's how we're starting to think about this, so that we aren't, one size fits all. You'll end up losing a lot of people along the way.
Yeah. And maybe I'll share too, like in our product team, like we actually come together once a month for, we call it product day. And so, a couple months back, I don't think I'm the savviest, but like I'm an AI enthusiast and, held a session on like, hey, here are the different tools that we have available to us and here are different ways of working. And I think by just carving out that time and then literally just being able to spend time with everyone to be like, here's how you do your setup, or hey, here are the different prompts people are using. Like, I think that was huge in terms of just like, we were like, I think what made me think about it, Andrew, is you're talking about a persona, right? So like we're all kind of like trying to like find ways of how do we work better. And so like sometimes just like in your own like role or team, right, coming together to kind of solve for the same things, I think is super helpful because you're kind of all in it together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. It's the new hot topic on the block as everyone's talking about. But as you all are sharing your experiences, either with friction or adoption, it really just goes down to the fundamentals of working in a corporate environment and a team. It's collaborating, piggybacking off of each other, or just to your point, just like change management, or Andrew, you talking about considering an audience. Like these things aren't new. It's just the technology that's new. And how do we apply those to those cornerstone principles of working together and moving an organization forward? So those are all really, really great points and insights. So I appreciate that. Leslie, I have a question specifically for you. So you have a wealth of HR knowledge from many different types of organizations. And when it comes to AI, I feel like maybe HR and human resources isn't at the forefront of thinking about how does that work in a function like HR, since it has human in the name, human resources. So what's the most unexpected outcome, either positive or negative, that you've seen after implementing AI in the HR function?
Absolutely. So I'll share a bit of both. I have this steadfast belief that technology should actually be ingrained in everything we do in HR. And in fact, I'll put this out there that I believe HR should lead AI, because how else do you have an experienced organization that can upskill a workforce? And I come from the time where the Tobys of the world resonated more often than not when you think about HR. So I don't know if anyone has seen The Office, but there was this one lonely HR professional. His name was Toby, and I grew up with my little brother calling me Toby throughout my entire career. No, regardless of the fact that I now have a family and of myself. But suffice it to say, HR has evolved as an organization, as an industry, and in order to enable in this dynamic environment, I think AI should be at the forefront of that enablement when we think about people strategies. So a positive outcome I've seen HR leaders, associates really take on this challenge and say, what else I can do? How else can I better myself within the culture of capital? And seeing that come to fruition has been inspiring. On the opposite end, of course, as Jessica mentioned, we see resistance at all levels of the organization. But I really have this inherent belief that HR can move from adoptee to activist one day, and that resistance will soon go away. So I'm very excited to see what's on the horizon for HR as an industry and function.
Yeah, I think those are all great points. And I love that you said from resistance to adoption. And I think that's a common theme when it comes to this new technology, not just in HR, but maybe across business as a whole. Or is this going to take my job? What opportunity is this going to create versus, what might be a transformed body of work? So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and just say, in general, with this changing landscape in terms of the technology, which new skills or mindsets are most critical for professionals to thrive in an AI-enabled workplace? And anyone can jump in and answer that one first, but would love to hear all of your perspectives.
Maybe I'll jump in. I'll kick us off on this one. So for me, and I personally feel incredibly tech savvy, where I've worked with so many different products that I almost think of it as like technology becomes a way to interpret language, and every one of those technologies is just a different language, but they're kind of speaking the same one to me. And so when I look at a piece of technology, it's a form, it's fields, it's things transforming and transitioning from one state to another. And still, after all that technical background, I still feel like I need to go out and learn regularly, like on a weekly basis. And I'll give you an example. This last week, I've started taking this AI fundamentals course, and I've already gone out there. I've been building agents, right, getting into the complexity of it. And I'm taking this very foundational course, and I'm learning probability and odds and statistics and Bayes' theorem, right? Like I'm learning how they actually built this thing, which is going to improve how I can help guide the function in the future. As these things start to evolve, I'll really understand them underneath the surface. And even though I'm in a technology space, so you go, yep, Andrew, that makes full sense for you to be doing that. I 100% believe everybody should be doing something similar to this, of building up your AI fleet.
We may have lost Andrew for a bit.
Froze him in the middle of that great point.
Maybe have opportunities to guide and build your own agents. So I think being able to get ahead of those things, hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm getting a little
we're good.
laggy, but those are the things that I think we should be going out and learning right now, because every job is going to be the job, like marketing plus AI. And how do you combine those two together?
Absolutely. I think we've seen that on a small scale here just within our walls. So no doubt that it's applying to industries everywhere. So, but Leslie, Jessica, any thoughts from you all on just skills or mindsets for an AI-enabled workplace?
I don't think this is anything new, but resiliency comes to mind. I recall the days where, we would print out documents. I worked with a green screen back in the day. I think about all, technology advancements we've experienced as a culture, and that steadfast belief of going with the change, learning something new. There will be a new AI in the future. There will be some new change in our environment, and being willing to lean in. I would offer resiliency as that skill.
Yeah. Maybe I'll kind of layer on with what Leslie said about resilience. And maybe I guess my perspective is that it's not going to work the first time, right? With whatever onset or task or thing that you're trying to do, right? So it's more like every time you hit failure, you can't let that like make you stop, right? Like, oh, I asked it to like look at this photo and it gave me something incorrect, so I gave up, right? Like, no, like you got to continue to push forward and understand like how best to actually work with this new technology. And so, right next to resilience, I wrote down communication. So, like being able to articulate, right, exactly what it is that you want, because that's the interface that we have right now is chat or verbal, or so like unless you can articulate and work on that communication to actually identify and give it that context that it needs, or be able to describe the problem, right, like you won't really get the outcome that you're looking for. And then I think maybe the last one is just curiosity, right? So really pushing the limits, because I think we're really at the beginning. I know we're all talking about like agentic and autonomous AI, and I don't think we're there yet. We're still just trying to figure out like how can we use it today and put in the right guardrails, right? So that you're actually getting the right outcomes that you're looking for, that consistency or that high accuracy or quality of it. So.
Yeah, I think those are all really great tangibles. I was just writing down some notes from Andrew's continuous learning and just always having that intellectual curiosity, but this time it's just framed in terms of AI and what you can do with it and how it relates to your day to day, resilience, failing forward, communication. I know I used to be victim of, if I didn't get the first thing or get it right on the first try, then I would just stop the communication altogether and try and do it myself. And it's definitely taken some iterations and getting more comfortable and using prompts, leveraging my teammates to see what they use. So that's all really great advice, and just the natural curiosity of like, how can I push the boundaries with this technology and how can I most optimize my work? So I appreciate all the insights from you all. We are going to shift gears a little bit. So Capital Group does have 5 core values: integrity, client focus, diverse perspectives, long-term, and community. So Jessica, I'd love to have you start with this one, and just get your thoughts on how Capital Group ensures AI adoption and integration reflects our core values versus just chasing a technology trend.
Yeah, I think in 2 ways. One, you know, we've made deliberate decisions in terms of creating like dedicated roles, right? Focused on just AI and figuring out how do we best leverage AI for the work that we do, right? So like recently there was there was a global innovation team which actually combines a data team that I'm on with AI, because for AI to work, we have to have good, clean data, right? Like we don't want the whole garbage in, garbage out, and then it's that whole frustration cycle all over again. So one, I think we're making deliberate choices that way, right? Of like, we know that we need people 100% focused on this, right? It's not going to work if everyone is just, a little bit on it. And I think the second is that even though there are these dedicated roles, I think it's, our leadership team has been very clear and vocal that, there's no one team or one person or one solution that's going to be the answer to what we're looking for, right? And so it's really on all of us to figure out how this is going to work and to share that across the not just our department but the whole organization, right? And so I think just by being one, just transparent about it and asking for the help, right? Because we need, this is really, everyone needs to kind of dig in and help figure this out. I think that has been huge because there's been a lot of support for us to try. And if we fail, that's okay, because we learned, hey, it can't do this today, maybe, right? But that doesn't mean it can't be solved for later. So I think it's I think a combination of those two.
Yeah, and I heard through that integrity, community, those diverse perspectives, always bringing that in. So I think those are really great examples. Andrew, I'd love to get your perspective. How have we encouraged AI adoption and integration, but still held true to our core values?
Yeah, I think this is it's nice because Capital Group, long before AI was everything, right? Capital Group's been around almost 100 years now, and we have a long history of hiring kind, intelligent, caring people and transitioning that from generation to generation. And so we have a long history of doing the right thing, even when no one's looking. And it's the same thing with AI, right? As all of this AI is popping up in all of our various products, it would be very easy for us to go, oh, cool, great new feature. Let's turn it on and see what happens. That is not how it happens at Capital Group. We have a very robust and complex system at the moment that I hope we get simpler at, but that robust system allows all of our experts from privacy and risk and info security and architecture, all of them to weigh in on the ideas of how we might use that AI. And a very big part of that is, what is the impact on the humans, right? Like, how are we going to understand what this is doing? How do we bias test this? How do we make sure that we know exactly what this AI is going to do once we launch it? And by the way, after we launch it, how are we measuring it to validate that it's still doing exactly what we thought it was going to do? It's a new world, I think, we found ourselves in, and it's way more complex because there's so much happening all at once. But the great thing about Capital Group is we've been doing that for almost the last 100 years. It's not a new thing for us to be rigorously analyzing any kind of scenario and figuring out the best way to move it forward for the long-term success, right? It's not the short term, which would be the very easy, let me just turn that thing on and we gain the future. We can go out and say we adopted AI. We want the AI to have a long-term result for us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Andrew. Not just taking the quick, easy wins that might solve like the temporary problem, but really looking at long-term solutions for our organization with humans and people first at the center. Leslie, did you want to chime in? Sorry, you came off. Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think both Jessica and Andrew hit the nail on the head. One thing that I've always come to value of capital is the thoughtfulness. It's rigorous analysis in terms of the quality of product. No matter what we do it well. And it very much hits home on what Andrew was speaking to of whatever AI decisions we make, it will be done with the associate first in mind.
Thank you. Before we go to our live Q&A, I did have some rapid fire questions for our panelists. So just quick, short answers before we move to the Q&A section. So Andrew, name a manual task you'll never go back to because of AI.
Taking meeting notes. I'm done. I'm never doing it again.
Yes, absolutely. Jessica, what's the best prompt pattern that you still use weekly?
Honestly, I was thinking about this. There's a few, but I think my favorite one is saying that this is a collaborative process. What questions do you have for me? Because sometimes I think it can read my mind when I know it can't, and I just forget. So I have to say that.
That's a great one. I'm going to have to start incorporating that. And then Leslie, finish the sentence. AI helps us blank.
Be a better version of ourselves. It will always teach me new things every day. And at times, AI is my personal coach. So I really do have come to rely on it quite a bit.
That's great. All great answers. Thank you all for the insights that you've shared so far. We are going to go to that live Q&A section. So again, over on the right side of the screen, you'll see an event chat that also has Q&A. So please submit those questions there for our panelists. I'd like to start just a general question to all of you. What advice would you give your younger self, whether that has to do with AI specifically or just in general adopting new technologies, or just as you're starting out in a career, what advice do you have?
I'll start if you don't mind. What immediately comes to mind is patience. I have none. I have learned over the years, and I think it's so easy to want to learn and be the best of whatever is in front of you. But the truth is, growing takes time, and so I would have very much reminded my younger self to be patient.
I'm also part of the No Patience Club, and that's also one of the pieces of advice I give. I was told by a mentor one time, you have a whole lot of career, don't try to spend it all in one place or at one time. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. Got a lot of years of working. So thanks, Leslie.
Love it.
Andrew, Jessica, what about you two? Advice for your younger self?
Maybe I'll riff off of Leslie's because I was thinking about this, and the first thing that comes to mind is go get a degree in artificial intelligence so that you really understand it when you get to this point. But then I'm also cognizant of the fact that all those steps that I had to go through to get to where I am today, they were all required to be here in the first place. So if I'd ever gone back and changed that degree that I went after, I may not be where I'm at today. So maybe I'll just say, have patience, you'll get there, stay the course, like this is all going to work out.
I think for me, what I learned probably later in my career that I probably should have focused on early on is it's not just about results, but also relationships. So really think about, who you're working with, the team, your manager, creating that network, because you never know by whoever you come in contact with or connect with, right? Just like how that can really open doors for you and, shape different opportunities that are given to you within your current company, or even if you're looking at your next career. So don't just focus on a heads down output, but really, get those relationships out there.
Absolutely. Relationships are key. I just had a little technical glitch. Not sure if everyone else is back. But thank you all for the advice to your younger selves. We have another question from the audience. What is the team most excited about for the future in terms of AI at Capital Group? Not sure if anyone in particular wants to start. Maybe I'll pick on Leslie since she's on my team, so I don't mind asking her to start.
Frankly, what immediately comes to mind for me is two things: task automation and analysis. And so when I think about all the analytics that we do as part of HR, people, especially around people data, really getting to that more advanced analytics from a chatbot perspective, I think is just right in the horizon for us. I also think about the task automation piece. We have some processes that are very much ripe for redesign, reinventing, and I think AI will get us there.
I think if I can jump in, I would say about how my role's changing. I'm finding that like by doing a lot more experiments and stuff, I feel more creative when I don't think I'm very creative in working with data. So I think it's going to be really fun to see how things change, like in terms of the hats that we wear or, the different tools and just, what will change. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I think the change will be huge. And I think the way that people adapt to it will be really exciting in terms of like what roles will exist that didn't before and what functionalities now that, to Leslie's point, we freed up some of that automation of tasks or the analytics, even like heads down in so much data, like what can be done with all of that time.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity for us to shape what our new roles can look like, right? By figuring out how we use AI. So I think that'll be cool.
Andrew, is there anything that you're most excited for in terms of AI in the future at Capital?
Oh, I could take a whole other session just on the things I'm excited about from AI at Capital Group. What I'll add, I'm very similar to Leslie because we work in similar spaces. So the things that Leslie's excited about, I'm also excited about. The one that I'll add is, organizations are going to shift over the next 5 to 10 years as they meet this new future where AI is integrated into teams, right? So you're going to, at some point in the future, have digital colleagues that can do a collection of things that are very specific to a role or very specific to maybe like a single body of work that a role does today. And we're gonna have to figure out how to integrate those into teams so that you can collaborate with them just like you would collaborate with a digital colleague today. And then there's another stage beyond that where once you have AI literacy throughout your entire organization and the capabilities where anybody can go out and build an agent or modify an agent or tweak an agent, all of us are going to be managers of agents, right? And it's figuring out, how do we get there? How do you take the right steps to get there so that you bring everybody along, just like we were talking about from an adoption perspective. But that, I think, is where we get super employees ultimately at the end of the day, because imagine you're just one human, but if you have access to 90 plus agents that you can go out there and have them be doing things on your behalf, think about the impact that you just expanded from your one self to all those agents working on your behalf. That to me, I think, is really, really exciting. It's far out into the future, but like I'm thinking about it today, and how do we start taking the steps now so that we have the right foundation in place that makes that easier to enable.
Yeah, I think the possibilities are endless, even just thinking about that. And no doubt, I'm not surprised that it's a thought in Andrew's head after we were prepping for this. I think talking to him, Jessica, and Leslie, I was like, wow, I thought I was an early adopter and, doing all of these things. And then I realized there's so many more like places and routes that you can kind of weave this into your work to make yourself more productive. Which actually, based off of that answer, Andrew, and I'd love everybody else to chime in as well. How do you prepare teams with different levels of technical comfort to work confidently alongside AI, whether that's the agents that Andrew's talking about or just in general? Like, is there certain skills when you think about upskilling? Is there certain programs? Is it just mindset? Is it a leadership tone setting? Like, how do you get teams that maybe don't work in the technical space at all to be kind of prepared for that level of coinciding with this technology?
Can I say all of the above? I feel like they're all they're all
Probably
tools in the
then
tool
some.
chest. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately we're doing everything we can, but maybe the simplest way to answer this is to really understand the population that you're trying to help transform, right? Because today, if you brought me somebody and you said they're struggling to use AI, they don't know how to use it, what I want to do is spend some time with them and look at how they go through their role. What is it that they're doing today? right? And I guarantee you, as I'm watching them go through this process, I will start to identify places where AI could play a role. It could speed up, maybe it could take something over, open up more opportunities for them. And so today, I think a lot of times people are either change resistant or they're super busy, so they don't have time to go out and do this digging to understand it. But that's where I would start. If you're having resistance to adoption, go set with the people resisting it and see what they're doing, right? And help them understand where might this be an opportunity for them, and help them understand, like, people need to see it. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've told somebody what that technology can do, what the experience will be, and they think they got it, but they don't really until they see it. So to me, it's like, how do you get in there and help them be believers that this is going to be a support for them?
Yeah, I think with all the competing priorities too, it makes sense. People sometimes do need to see it, and we count on people who are very technical to kind of get us there. And hopefully as it evolves, it doesn't take so much of that heavy lifting. But I know you touched on earlier just understanding the audience. And so I think you just brought that up again, like, what's the population? What are they trying to accomplish? Where can it be most impactful so that they see the benefit and then buy in? Jessica, sorry, I just jumped in.
No, that's okay. No, I was gonna say +1 to everything Andrew said, and especially like I think they had mentioned earlier, like meeting people where they are, because sometimes it's very overwhelming, and you you may not know where to start, right? Or where AI can actually help. And so like if you're so like stuck in like, this world, I feel like we're always constantly busy, right? So like that time aspect that sometimes there's just not that space to think about how could I use AI. And so I really like how Andrew said, like, you really need to make it tangible and show that, right? Because like sometimes it's just that, like, I think, you know, especially if they're not using it already, like, I think it just may be really hard to understand and like how it can actually work for them. So start
And
small.
if I can just add, I would say small and simple. So one thing
Yes.
I've learned working with different types of interest, passion, and comfort levels is, taking away the corporate jargon and actually putting in layman's terms that really resonate with the audience. For HR, I think we definitely know our corporate jargon. But when we dive deep in the world of AI, how do we just make it real and tangible for those in the room, and it resonate with what Andrew had shared too.
I like all of those words: tangible, small, simple. As Leslie said, in HR, we are no stranger. I think anybody in a corporate environment to corporate jargon, but when it starts getting into technical corporate jargon, that's where it really kind of can lose it for me at times. So even in preparing for this conversation, it was a lot of like, let me go back and like look up that acronym or look into this tool. So I'm speaking on the same playing field. So I think the more that we can do that for our teams and make it bite sized and make it fun, I think ultimately at the end of the day, aside from the results, finding ways to make it fun is super important. So I appreciate you all chiming in on that. Maybe 1 to 2 more. What's a great example of AI helping but not replacing employees or our associates?
Yeah, so I'm happy to speak on that front. I have a genuine belief that AI augments our strengths. And so when I think about what we're experiencing within HR across capital is we're seeing the use of AI give more clear communication direction in terms of the work in front of us. I've seen the augmenting of our ability to drive impact and deliver on work products that may have taken us maybe, 10 hours to do, and now it takes us 2. So I truly believe that technology is enabler of what we can accomplish, especially within HR.
It's a great one, calling out time savings and just augmenting versus replacement. I like that framing, and it's definitely true to the work that we've been doing.
Yeah, I think for me being in product, there's always a project management aspect to our role, right? So whether it's like status updates or summaries from our different sprints, and it's not always the most fun thing, right? It's a very like admin overhead type things, and so for me and the other product folks that I work with, it's letting us focus on the like more fun things that we want to do, right? Like, hey, what's this what does our roadmap look like for the next year? What are the different features? Like, let's really dive in and understand, right? Like, what data that we're trying to bring in to solve X problems. And so, like, for me, I feel like it's taking all the things that like I'd rather not spend time on, right? So that I can do the more fun things. And I think that's been huge.
Yeah, I think that is huge, and definitely just taking some of what you have to do, that pesky job description, all the work that, has to get done to make our organizations great, and making more room for the fun, the strategy pieces, the part that a human's always going to be leading the way, and just taking some of the stuff that we don't need to belabor for hours and hours going through. Andrew, anything from you on that one before maybe we go to our last question?
Maybe I'll just add to assuage fears that the more you start to actually dive into how AI works behind the scenes, you'll realize that we are still a long ways off from this, mythical AGI that can do exactly what a human does. At the end of the day, you are the quantum computer. You are the what the non-artificial intelligence, right? Like you have so many things that are your strengths. AI is a modifier. It's an accommodator, right? And there are certain skills that it may be able to take over, but no humans. There's no full humans that it can take over, right? And so as long as you have that belief and you go into it saying, let me make sure that I understand AI and how it works, you're going to be set up for success in the future. I think that's going to be the big thing that employers are looking for. No matter what space you find yourself passionate about, it'll be that plus AI, right? If you can bring AI with you to say, I understand it, I know how it is influencing my work, the space, the industry, that's going to set you up for the long-term success. That's going to be who we need in the future, honestly, right? And we're always going to continue to need humans, even if they came up with a way to do everything that we do today with AI. We're going to come up with new things we can do that the AI isn't going to be able to do, right? And so that I think is always going to be true. It's going to be humans plus technology working together.
Yeah. Andrew, if I can add into that. I always say trust, but verify, right? So like it can look like it's doing awesome, good, great work, but then when you really look at it, right? Like we really need ourselves in the loop, right? Human in the loop in all of this to make sure that it's actually doing what we're asking it to do, right? Because if at the end of the day it is, it is technology, it's undeterministic, right? So it can be great, 8 out of 10, but those 2 out of 10 could be very critical. And so, we need to find ways of either flagging so that like, if you're looking at like millions of transactions or rows, right? We can't look at every single row, but like what are those thresholds or those guardrails to make sure that we're looking at those outliers or those exceptions, right? To make sure that it's still having the output that we're looking for. So trust to verify.
I'll also add, I heard this stat just yesterday, but the largest LLM out there only has the knowledge, the amount of knowledge that a 4-year-old has come across in their 4 years of living, right? So just imagine how many more years you have. That's on top of the best LLM right now.
That's a great statistic. And I love the trust but verify, always needing human in the loop, going back in. And I think to Jessica's point, it just enables us to work smarter, not harder. It's taking a lot of the harder out and really just looking at those things that need critical eyes, which is a way better use of our time than maybe all of the other noise that can be easily fact checked and things like that. One question that we got pretty frequently that I'm going to frame up for Leslie, and then we will wrap up for today. But are there any AI certification programs that you would recommend? And I'm teeing this up for Leslie since I do work with her, and she has had some ideas in this space, and I think has a good answer for everyone that asked, since that was a popular question.
Yeah. So I'll share the following advice as a challenge. Go to your favorite AI app and ask it to create a development plan for you. Say specifically what you're wanting to achieve in terms of your learning, what specific audience, industry you want to target, and I can assure you it will send you in the right direction. It will provide you certification programs that more are geared towards what you're interested in learning and what is more relevant to your respective careers. And I think that's a great way to start to ensure you're doing the right certifications for yourself.
I think that's a great answer, great question to end on. There's your call to action for everybody here today after hearing from Leslie, Andrew, and Jessica. First of all, I just want to give a big virtual round of applause. If you could hit the emoji for our panelists today. They shared a lot of great insights, and I just appreciate them taking the time to talk to this Fairygodboss audience. Just a reminder, we will be sending out the recording, so if you had to leave us early or if you'd like to review any advice from Leslie, Andrew, or Jessica, they will be sent out. And we are going to pull up a slide with our QR code for Capital Group's talent community. So if you would like to stay connected with us past just this session today, just go ahead and scan that QR code to join our talent community, because we'd love to stay connected with you as well. But thank you so much again on behalf of Capital Group and Fairygodboss for joining today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.